Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And it brings me great pleasure to present to you Dr. Maria Ian and her fourth appearance with us. And our topic of discussion will be Return to Infancy. So, welcome, Dr. Ian.
Well, Anolia, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to present on this fascinating topic.
Yes, yes. And as we speak about return to infancy, that can mean so many things. So I'm going to ask you to set the stage for how we're going to focus in on this particular topic.
Okay, well, we spoke before about death and about how death is really a beginning of a new stage, of a new energy stage. We spoke about emotions, how emotions really put us into contact with the essence of the universe, and how important that is for us to experience our emotions from a higher center of awareness and not reactively. Just because of if we experience emotions reactively, we are causing ourselves damage, and we are causing the universe damage. So what we have been, I think, speaking about is our lifetime here and on this planet is a cycle, right? That we are putting ourselves on. And on this cycle, we have to be, or should be, in tune if we want to live authentically and responsibly, and bring goodness to the world around us and help the planet progress. If we want to accomplish those things, we should be properly in tune with the energy of the universe that creates us, sustains us at all times, and is our authentic self, right? And there is
Right.
Right, yeah. So there is a lot. So that's the philosophical background in very, very big terms. If we want to look at it from a medical perspective, may want to call it traditional Chinese medicine. If that's too esoteric, even Western medicine has very, very similar research coming out in recent years. All of our organs are not just individual pieces of flesh. They operate on an energy grid that supports, maintains, and also constantly recreates our bodies by the means of the energy in our cells, right? So we're talking a lot about energy, and there is again a lot of medical research, people who want to look more into how our organs work with energy. I have a book specifying that in great detail on Amazon, The Miracle of Aging and Longevity. So there is a lot of stuff there, right? But the bottom line is we are interested in this because we want to live authentic lives that bring goodness to the world around us and help the planet and humanity progress to a new vision, to a new frontier, right? That's why we are interested in these topics. Because we could also be interested in these topics just because we want to develop ourselves to the super being, right? That we could be, but then we could use that to cause damage to others, to cause damage to ourselves. But if we had that intention to just create ourselves as a super being, and to just serve whatever own purposes of power that we have, if we have that intention, usually if we cause ourselves damage in the process, that doesn't bother us a lot, because
Right.
yes, because pain is very relative, and you can pretty much train yourself to put up with a lot of pain, also good pain as well as bad pain, right? So we're not interested in in cellular energy. We're not interested in the medical perspective only because we want our organs, our bodies, our blood, our brain, our everything to function superbly and superiorly, right? We don't just want to be these super athletes, right? We want to,
Right.
right, we want to use that in order to help humanity, progress to new frontiers of science, of insights, of values, of to raise the various good things we can do with that if we are those superhuman beings, right? So then what comes in here is the concept of value, right? When we want to talk, I don't like to talk about morality a lot because morality has sort of a very, can have a very judgmental connotation attached to it. So instead of morality, I'd like to say, values, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then how do we keep our values aligned with this vision, right? Of helping
Right.
humanity, being progressive people, being able to move forwards to new frontiers, discover new things, work with new things, as opposed to, going back to the Stone Ages. And in order for us to accomplish that, for our values to be aligned to this vision, we have to be clear. We have to be authentic and clear, and not only as regards the individualization of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but as regards,
Mm-hmm.
you're right, the attunement of that with the essence of the universe, because the essence of the universe, the energy of the universe is always good. I think we may have had at some point another conversation about that creation is always good. Creation can never be bad. That's a, it doesn't work.
Right.
So,
Right.
right. So how do we reach this authenticity that enables us to be right?
Right.
That's a fundamental human
And I
question.
want to pause right there because, yeah,
Yeah.
because you've said a great deal, and I want to just build up for our audience sake, because the pieces that we've spoken about in the past
Mm-hmm.
and the core balance that our body brings, because see, when your body is out of balance, then you don't think clearly,
Yeah.
you don't find that bliss because you're focused on what the body isn't doing. So when
Mm-hmm.
you talk about the fact that energy impacts the body, I really want to bring out the fact that each one of our organs has its own resonance and its own
Absolutely.
vibration and its own tone. And
Absolutely.
in that resonance and vibration and tone, it correlates to the whole, so
Yeah.
that we are
Absolutely.
and we're in balance. So that infancy, that baby, comes into this world totally balanced, unless there's a particular physical
Exactly.
deformation or something that's most obvious. But typically, when we're born, we come in balance,
Yep.
and it's our practices and how we're fed, how we're cultivated, how we're nurtured, whether
Mm-hmm.
we stay in balance
Yeah.
or in imbalance is
Exactly.
cultivated. And
Exactly.
so, and I just want to break it down to the most simplest so that our audience stays with us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes. Yes.
and then what you're basically saying is that, taking that foundation is there, the clarity and the thought process and
Mm-hmm.
everything that we do in terms of gleaning the clarity and wisdom, and gleaning the connection we have, the source that brings the clarity and wisdom,
Yes.
is the next symbiosis, right,
Yes.
of matching with that body
You
in
got it.
balance.
Yes.
Okay, that really brings everything forward.
Exactly.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we agree 200%. Yes. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so when we talk about the fact that we want to broaden our wisdom and broaden our intelligence and really allow that bliss to move forward, really what you're talking about is the core essence of who we are as a being, and
Yes.
not emotions. Emotions are a result of what we choose to vibrate.
Yes, you got it. You absolutely, yes, that's a very beautiful summary of what we've been talking about. And it's very clear and absolutely. And the infant, why is the infant so crucial, right? it's because, again, as we were saying, we want primarily not only our organs, our bodies to operate at a stellar level, but we want to be authentic with our source,
Yes,
with with
yes.
right, with the energy of the universe that constantly creates and maintains us, right?
Hmm.
Now, as we just said, the infant is born 200% authentic, right? And pure and in tune with the energy that created it, right? Um, Now here's what happens. As you know, most people who are interested in energy healing know at some point you get, as you also just said, we start getting programmed, right? In many various different ways, by our parents, by our environment, by schools, by society, by media, by about anything in many different dimensions, right? So we really find it, and if you look at it from that perspective, which most most individuals interested in mental and spiritual health today do, then how on earth are you ever going to be authentic? How on
Right.
earth, right? Because how are you going to, you can't constantly battle and analyze and scrutinize and turn upside down and look at it from all different dimensions, every single piece of information you encounter every day. You know, it's you could in theory, but there's a lot involved, right?
Right.
Right. So the most straightforward thing obviously is to get back to basics, right? um
Yes.
and I found it very helpful in my own practice and in what I have observed in clients, again, to look at the first 6 months, 1 year of life, and
Okay.
to see what blockages, I don't, not necessarily barriers, but what blockages came in during that period. And you're going to be amazed at how accurate that is, because there's going to be very few. There's not going to be as many as
Right.
today, when you have media environment, or you have so much today, information, people, whatnot, right? There's going to be very, very few. And it
Well,
is,
that makes sense, though. That
it
that,
makes
that
sense.
makes absolute sense because the needs of a child between that age is to eat, to sleep, to rest, and to play. Four
Yeah,
basic needs,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so blockages would come in only if any of those basic needs are denied.
Yes, yes, exactly. And you're going to find it fascinating, which is why I find this topic so fascinating, that it is those first blockages that then underlie and repeat themselves in various patterns late throughout life. So,
Right.
so when we
Makes
say,
sense.
oh my God, there's this complex thing, this complex problem, and whatnot, it is one of those blockages that underlies that at a very foundational level, and we have a lot to gain as practitioners and as human beings if we know how to get to that area, to that 6 months, 1 year area, maybe including up to when an infant first stands up and walks, because that's also a
Hmm.
very important moment, a very important moment, and the time immediately thereafter. So the first 6 months to a year, and then the maybe 1 year after that, you know, all blockages that occur then are going to, I mean, I don't want to sound fatalistic or deterministic, but that's just what I observed, to repeat themselves in various forms, throughout life.
Well, a
Yes.
certain amount of common sense really makes sense there. I mean, for example, if you're left alone and you're crying and you're screaming because there's nothing or no one there to engage you, that
Yeah.
sense of abandonment falls
Mm-hmm.
into play, right? So the fear of abandonment, the fear of anybody walking away because once when it happened, no one returned, no one met the need
Yes.
of that child, that
Yes.
makes the other piece of that is the lack of touch, right? So
Yes.
a child needs engagement and touch. And when the child sees that person, it's the child is looking for that sense of nurturing that takes place. The holding of when it eats, or when he or she eats, the holding of when he or she has a need,
Yeah.
right? Even down to being changed and whatnot. There's a love transference there. There's a touch transference there,
Mhm.
and if that's absent, I could see that reverberating throughout the child's complete life. We know that we need human touch.
Yeah.
Okay, the need for hunger and feeling like the food's not going to be there,
Yeah.
and wanting for food. I mean,
Yeah.
these are basic things that if this was absent as an adult, we'd be freaking out. We'd be flipping.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We couldn't cope, and would express that succinctly. It's like, wait a minute, you
Mhm.
love me, you know? But
Mhm.
because a child can't express those needs and isn't fully speaking yet or anything else, all they get is the energy of it. And it
Yes,
makes sense. And so,
exactly.
as
Mhm.
a practitioner, if we could pinpoint that may have taken place in a person's life, yes, it's going to speak volumes. It's
Yeah,
going to
and
speak volumes.
oh yes. And what I think is particularly fascinating is that works not only with bad things, such as not having nutrition, not having attention, not having, human touch. It also works with good things, because I'm sure it happened to
Okay.
many of our viewers that you may have had a big problem or something that really wasn't working out, but then suddenly there was a solution and it was very easy. Whereas other things may have been big problems, weren't working out, whatnot, and there was no easy solution, right? And you may have
Right.
wrapped your brains comparing those two instances and saying, well, I don't quite get it. What made for you can drive yourself completely crazy thinking about life's problems, right? But if as an infant, there was one thing you did that worked very well for you. And this is what I just want to tell the audience. There was, when you were an infant, at least one good thing that happened to you. Okay, there is no such thing as there nothing could ever happen to me. My life was always complete miserable. I was born miserable. It does not exist just because of how the universe works. So at least one good thing that happened to you when you were a very, 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 very young age, right? And if you can grasp that thing, and not only that, but live it again, and it's going to be an interesting experience, because it's a very basic thing. You're going to live something
Mhm.
that's maybe as small as getting up, like your first steps. How many people remember the first steps they took when they first got up from the floor, from their bed, from their wherever they were seated or lying, and they decided, it's not a
Mhm.
decision, they were compelled by the energy to get up and walk. How many remember that? Well, that's one good thing that happened to you. And the fact that today you're a walking adult, it means that good thing did happen to you. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so, in as much as we're talking about the negative things that have an effect on a child or infancy stage, the positives are just as powerful, and that
Yes.
reinforcement.
Yes. You got it. Yep. They are just as powerful, because energy, again, doesn't know good and evil, really, in that sense. They're just
Right. Right.
vibrations, right? Yeah. Hmm.
So scientifically, can you comment on the fact that our connection to universe, understanding that it's predicated on this balance that takes place in the physical and
Yes.
a balance that takes place on our I dare say mental versus emotional. I don't want to say emotional, I want to say mental. Is there something within us that allows the ultimate connection if we are aligned appropriately?
There absolutely is. And in my opinion, in my experience, it is the infant, because we've got a Tao, right? I mean, those who are familiar with the Tao, probably not that many, but those who are familiar, and it's very easy to explain, is there is a constant, right? Our energy first medically has to be kept at a constant level throughout all of our systems, right? Because if it drops,
Right.
that's how disease happens. Or if it augments, imbalances, that's how disease happens. But at an even
Right.
superior level, from our center of our highest awareness, where we are most in tune, where we experience joy. Remember, we spoke about joy as an
Right.
authentic
Right.
emotion. That level, that Tao, that identity, that I am. It is the statement that an infant has, that I am, right? I am an individual in this world. That never leaves us. You see, I mean, the majority of humanity refuses to acknowledge that, right? That's why we have reactive
Right.
emotions. That's why we have people who develop in ways that are just very, very, just beneficial for whatever their own purposes in that moment, because they reject that, right? But the Tao, our center of our highest awareness, you know, the infant, which is the pure energy, never leaves us, because we constantly recharge. I mean, our cells, we've got 3 billion or even more. People argue about how many
Yes.
cells we have, at least 3 billion. They constantly recharge, constantly, right? Like old cells die off and new cells are constantly created. They constantly cleanse themselves. They have their own housekeeping methods. They are constantly active. So the pure constant energy is always with us, okay?
Hmm.
But that's not the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is twofold, right? Number one is that many people refuse to acknowledge that, because they are engaged in reactions and things of that nature. And number two, and this is maybe an even bigger problem, is because that higher center of awareness never leaves us, it can't leave us, it constantly watches us. It's always there. We have an internal
Right.
watchman that's on 24/7, that knows what you're thinking when you're asleep, but knows what's going on in your subconscious when you are unaware. So it knows everything, and it doesn't like what it sees, right? And that's when we get conflicts and backs and forths, and people feeling hurt, people getting angry, people being frustrated, people taking wrong decisions, people going off in directions that are not authentic at all, because they're fighting themselves, right? What you don't want to do as a human being, and unfortunately everybody does that in a way or another, fighting yourself is not good, right? Because
No.
start fighting yourself and you start fighting others. um so to answer your question, what we can do, in my experience, is you got to go back to basics. You got to go back to that 6 months, 1 year, 2 year old area, and you got to confront yourself and say, what worked then and what did not work, right? And just be very honest, because some of those things are going to be very painful, because as we grow through life, so-called growth, we come up with rational justifications. So if something doesn't work, we're going to say, oh, maybe it wasn't meant for me, maybe it's somebody else who did this to me, maybe I'm the wrong gender, maybe this, maybe that. But maybe that one thing that isn't working
Right.
is precisely the one thing that did work when you were that age. But now you're rejecting it, you see? Because you now are labeling, you are rationally
So how
justifying.
does one person
Mhm. Go ahead.
Right. So
Yeah.
how does a person recognize this within themselves, and then how do they self-correct?
Okay.
So, and that's a heavy duty question, because to recognize this within oneself,
Mm-hmm.
or to recognize, even if you say the signs and then seek help, but what are the signs? What is it that we have to recognize within ourselves?
That's an excellent question. And there is one simple answer and one complicated answer, but actually both very simple, but one is may sound complicated. Well, the complicated one is you can follow various programs of self-hypnosis, of confronting blockages, of unraveling, healing those dark spots, those dark areas, right?
Hmm.
And eventually, if you do that consistently, you will get back. You will. If you do that consistently and correctly, you will get back to that cosmic vision that you were when you were first coming into this world, right? Because that's what we were when we first arrived. We were cosmic visions, right? We were creations of the universe.
Right.
So that's, I mean, that answer also, I'm saying complex, it's actually simple because it's just something you got to do. But now the simple answer is you got to look at pictures of you when you were, you know, that age. And because the adults who took pictures, they took pictures of you for a reason, right? They didn't just, I mean, many people say, oh, cute baby, let's take a picture. But in many cases also, those were taken for a reason, because the infant did something that was, oh, look at that, right? Um, that,
Okay.
that's
That's
why there
true.
was,
That's true.
right, that's why there was this wow factor coming together with that, because look at that, right? And in my experience, those are just tremendously revealing, can be tremendously revealing. Not only of yourself, also maybe if you had brothers and sisters or friends that you were like in the crib with, or things like that. Tremendously revealing, very revealing. You can, if you put your mind to it, you're very serious, you are familiar a little bit with what caused you hang-ups in your life, right? So you have done some self-reflection, and you take a picture album and you take out, start with infancy, like even your mother, your grandmother bathing you when you were a couple of months old. I'm talking very basic, simple things. And
Right.
yeah, and look at those pictures. Your whole life story is in those pictures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I never thought of it from that perspective. That's really interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm going to pose the same question to you. How does one self-correct with your methodology and your work?
Well, okay, again, two answers. One is the one I already gave, which is, I've got a program of self-hypnosis, of attacking trauma, of, solving those blockages,
Right,
and
right, right.
right, right. And that takes work, but it's very achievable. It's very achievable. And then you're going to get back to your cosmic creation. The other one is, you gotta address the pain. You gotta live with pain, and that's maybe the easier one. For example, I just want to give, I can give many examples, but I want to give myself as an example, because I can talk about myself sort of the most convincing way, right? Because I've experienced it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
You know what? When I was a toddler born, I first started to walk. For me, physical strength activity was very important. Like when I took my first steps, one of the first things I walked
Hmm.
towards was like on a playground, but I was way too small to go on a playground, right? But they had this equipment where you could, that I actually can show you the picture. That you could,
Uh-huh.
yeah, you could push and pull. Well, if you were like a larger kid, you could use it for something, right? But one of the first
Right.
things I did when I was a toddler, first started to walk. I went towards that piece of equipment and pulled it, you know, and I didn't listen. I had that voice. I said, "Oh no, this is metal. I cannot do this. It's going to hurt me a lot." But I did it, and first time you pull it, you do feel pain. But because children are not yet,
Right.
infants are not yet programmed as to how horrible pain is. Pain is just an incentive to growth. That's all that pain is. So when I felt that pain, to me that was an incentive that I had done something right, because you can feel your cells, your energy starts to move when you feel pain. Pain is a very good thing, you see. So
Right.
yes, so when I got myself into a situation later on in life when I was physically very ill, I had several things happening, but the most helpful thing was nose to the ground push-ups. And if your body,
Ah,
yes, if your body is not in good shape, that involves a lot of pain. I mean, the first time I started doing nose to the ground push-ups, all I could do, so that this is a wall, right? This is a wall. All I could do is these one are push-ups against the wall, because that's all I could do. And I
uh-huh.
had pain everywhere here, absolutely. But I went through with that, and eventually I got to nose to the ground, 30 and more. But it's very painful to get to that point. But once you are there, you know that's where your clarity is, because that's where the good things are. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, that's just one example. Other example is, oh, this is what you said in terms of abandonment, right? That was a
Hmm.
that was a very big factor in my infancy, because my family was deported from the area where they lived multiple times, every single member, right? So leaving, having to being against your will transported, having to go across large areas, large distances, happened very often, right? Now, if you're an adult, you know that's what's happening, and you basically found ways, right, to address that. But if you're an infant,
Right.
that because everybody leaves. Everybody can leave at any point. Like my parents left when I was not even 2 years old, 1 year old, and I had I had some medical issues at that time where that way I got a vaccine, and I had an allergic reaction, and nobody helped me. I was just screaming and yelling. And I mean, in terms of
Wow.
abandonment, yes, nobody, like, you're going to die, but nobody is helping you. Don't even try. And so that, though, oh, this is harsh, though. That had a solution, again, in physical activity, because whereas my parents had left, and I had this medical issue, and I was like, I have a picture of myself crying in the bed, and I'm all bundled up because
Okay.
people were afraid of viruses, that kids would bring viruses, so they would bundle up kids like in a straitjacket. And I have a picture of myself as a
Right.
on the bed crying, all like bundled up like that, right? But then, there was my grandmother, and she was working two jobs, and so she didn't have time to, I mean, she wanted to, but she had to take care of all of the things that my parents would have had to take care of if they wouldn't have been deported. There are various deportations, but they had been deported. Just say it in plain
Right.
language. Right. So I got myself out of that situation by being physically active with my grandmother. Now, my grandmother was a very physically active woman who had traveled all the
Right.
way from
Okay.
Uzbekistan, next to China, on foot to Eastern Europe. So she was like going 200 miles an hour, at least 10 hours a day, and
Uh-huh.
when I would do things with her,
Wow.
yeah, go and look for her, talk to her. Like, she liked to dance and be just very active, like try to do these things with her, which were a lot of activity. That's when I had, oh, look, I see sunshine. Oh, look, I see green, because maybe it's a garden. See, oh, I see a carpet that has colors. I'm no longer in that gray area. You see? and that helped again. But you gotta realize and see and live that, right? You cannot just talk about it. You have to live it. You have to see yourself in those moments
Right,
specifically,
right,
right? Just talking about it
right.
doesn't do it. It's yeah, you've got to live it, you know. And same thing when
So,
go yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, I want to ask you one question because a lot of practitioners are saying, well, then all you're describing is the inner child,
No, it's
and
not the
you have
child.
to work with the inner child.
It's not the no. That's a
And well, this is what I want you to do. I really want you to differentiate
yes.
specifically between that rationale versus what you're speaking about, because
Mm-hmm.
somebody outside, I don't want them to leap to that assumption because you're not speaking about that. So this is really important to differentiate that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I brought it up.
No, that's an excellent question. It's an excellent question because exactly that question preoccupied me. You know, when I first got into meditation, that was a long time ago, many years ago. What people
Right,
talk about is the inner child. That's what people talk about. You know, you got to be in tune with this inner reality, your groundedness, you know, your joy, your wonder, your innocence, right?
right.
So we're going to differentiate that. Those are still emotions, okay, first of all.
Yes.
Right? If I'm now going to sit still and take some meditation program, go through the steps and whatever it tells you, you start at the bottom of your head, you start to relax, you go down to your feet, you got to then feel very calm, feel relaxed, and then you're going to experience various things. Those are emotions. I concluded, and I had some individuals who helped me too, that you can be a totally fucked up person, pardon my language, and you can have that experience of relaxation, of inner child, of joy, of innocence, which, if you're talking about practical application, it's not really going to help you much. It's going to help you maybe for a few hours, for a couple of days, but once that sensation leaves, because it's going to leave, because it's an experience. It's like it's maybe a little deeper than other experience, but it's still an emotional experience within space and time, right? You're in your space, in
Right,
your body, in your room, in your time, and you're going through an experience through seconds, through minutes, right? And that's what there is to that. Now, what I'm that's about that inner child that to me was not helpful, but I spent a lot of time trying to
uh-huh.
work with that inner child because it's nice, it's nice because you sort of feel
Yeah,
calm, you feel relaxed, all those good things. No, what I'm talking about, first of all, is it's outside of space and time because as our authenticity, right? And that is outside of space and time. So that's a very first
yes,
big difference, right?
yes. Which sets the stage right there. But keep going.
Yes,
Right
right.
there.
Exactly.
That's the
Right.
lead. That's the difference right there. Outside the space and
Exactly. Yes. Number two, you do want to clear yourself of those energy blockages. So then, if that feeling of quietness and nice sort of calm, deep feeling, once you've cleared yourself of those energy blockages, or at least are on the path of doing that, you may very well no longer like that inner child. Huh. Yeah, that's okay. So that is a very important insight already right then and there. And then number three, it is your identity that we're talking about. We're talking about that cosmic creation that you were, and you're here in the pictures. You exist. This is not some feeling that you have. This is not some calm relaxation. This is not some innocent joy that you have. This is an actual cosmic creation within that is having a lived experience, and you're right there. And that's what you gotta wrap your head around. I mean, see the yeah, that's the bottom line. That's you. Yeah. Oh, you got you got the sound off. Got the sound off. Sound off.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
Yes.
I'm sorry about that.
No,
The
no. Yeah,
truck
that
going by.
just I want to just be very clear on that, is that it is you and it is a solution. You know, it is a solution. It's an action. It's an identity. It's a force. Yeah. Yeah.
And so understanding that, when we talked about this topic, we talked about the return to infancy. Let's
Yes.
talk about the return aspect of this.
Okay, that's another excellent question, because the return aspect, you know, can be mistaken again for that inner child that we just said we are distinguishing ourselves from, right? But it is, again,
Mm-hmm.
it is not that at all, because it's outside of space and time. It is a creation of our energy pathways, and it cannot be controlled by our mind or volition. So when we talk about the inner child, you know, okay, we say, okay, I'm following a meditation program. I'm going into a deep state. I'm going through the steps. I'm visualizing. I am going back to my innocence that I'm experiencing. But that is still emotions, again, in space and time. Now, the return to infancy is the breath of the universe that visits us because we are tapping into our authenticity. You know, that's what it's people who have experienced that, you know, I mean, I'm sure you may have. It is complete safety. You know, it's complete safety in the vastness of nothing, right? Because
Right.
the universe outside of space and time is nothing. It's a void, right? And that
Right.
would scare people, right? Because you've got whatnot, you've got wormholes, you've got evil, you've got Star Trek, you've got spaceships, you've got whatnot, right? But this void, you know, is complete, utter safety. Like, really, where
Right.
when you are something, nothing can harm you, right? When you are the universe, you are the energy that is creating you, nothing can harm you, absolutely nothing, right? So that is the return. But this experience, this reality is always with us, right? So when we say return to infancy, we're talking from the perspective of therapy. We're talking from the perspective of energy healing, of somebody who you know, has broken through the blockages and returned to their cosmic creation, right? If you're talking from the
Right.
universe beyond space and time, it's always there, right? It always is. It's right there, right now.
Yes.
It's there, you know, because it's indestructible. Yeah, that's what it is. It's we humans are just extraordinary. And you know, it's actually funny because because there's always, some individuals have preoccupations with aliens, with life on other planets, and with whatnot, spaceships and whatnot,
Right.
right? But what I think what underlies that is that all of that actually is us, right? So when we're talking about aliens, we are not authentic the way that we were created to be, because you know,
Uh-huh.
there are no aliens, because we humanity are the universe. So you know, we start seeing aliens, it's an indication that there is something not working, just to put it
Uh-huh.
politely. Because there are many people who are very interested in spaceships and aliens, you know, and I don't want to insult those people. But we humans, we can create ourselves, as we are talking about returning to infancy. We can also destroy ourselves. We can, as we spoke about earlier, with people who just want to use their energetic, you know, existence
Right.
to be suprahuman in a not good way. So if you are on the path of self-destruction, where you see yourself in communication with aliens and other forces, you know, that is, again, your reality that you have created. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now a person like that, a person who really, you know, is seeing aliens and believes, you know, they're aliens going to invade or harm us or whatnot. If that individual come to their realization that those are actually good beings, they're not evil, they're good, they're not going to see that distinction any longer. It's going to become irrelevant, you see, because then it's, you know, it's humanity that is the universe. It's our
Mhm.
it's our energy that is. It's not the alien any longer. So yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Oh
just,
my goodness.
yeah.
I was just going to say, I love we're talking, and where does the time go? Do you realize that it's almost been an hour?
Oh, great.
It
Oh, no, I didn't
me,
realize at all. No, no, I'm
it's
glad we
like,
got the part of aliens in, because there are some people, very serious people, they actually believe they're aliens and they're out to harm us, whatever, you know, I mean,
yeah,
it's you.
yeah,
You're seeing yourself.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, I always love to give us enough time to really just expand on that last point, which is that what else would you like to share about this topic? Anything else that you want to leave our audience with that's palatable for their return to their infancy as they embark on this journey of wisdom and learning from this episode?
Yes, yes, there's something very specific I'd like to leave everyone from, which is that I arrived at that by going through many trials and errors, which did not have to be. Again, I spent a lot of time following various meditation programs, which made me better here and there, but they didn't over the long term. You know, it was just go and get another meditation program, right?
Right.
There is a lot of misinformation, but in general out there in mental health, there's a lot of shortcuts. There is you know, various things of do this and you'll become extraordinary in 30 days, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
That's really, I don't see how, I have a hard time seeing how that something like that could work. But also, if you don't, and I'm not saying this because I just want to sell my program, because believe me, if you're my client, I'm going to work with you, and it is work for me too, and I could go and find a much easier job, you know. So I'm not here to sell my program primarily, but I just want to say from my own experience, the most fruitful, productive way to return to your infancy is to do it in a structured program and with professional guidance, because you can get there much faster and better for your own health than if you were going to say, wow, this is great, I'm going to research everything I can do on quantum physics, I'm going to research everything I can on everything, and then I'm just going to do my own thing because this is so phenomenal. If you are extremely lucky, that may work for you, but for the majority of people, I did that for many years, and it caused me a lot of hardship, a lot of confusion, a lot of pain, a lot of arguments with people who I then had to ask for advice because, you know, it's just too much information. A lot of arguments that could have very well been avoided, a lot of wasted money because you're going to go on all kinds of research tangents that all cost money. So my advice is, we're here, you know, Enolia and I, we have, you know, very similar programs. I have my program, and if you really want to step into your core, into your authenticity, take advantage of our help, because you can get there, you know, much, much faster than if you were now to just, you know, feel inspired and just go out there and do research. So please don't do that. You know, you know, go with our programs. You know, they're very tested. We have suffered sweat, blood, and tears to
Cheers.
craft
Yeah.
those programs, and they work if you stick with them. So go with the program. Don't go with the hype. You know, yeah, yeah.
Please tell everyone how they can reach you, how they can reach you directly.
All right, so I'm on LinkedIn, so this video is gonna be, it'll have my LinkedIn information because I'm gonna repost it on my LinkedIn
Yes,
as well. I'm always reachable there. That's the most direct way. And then by email, it's info@caveofthesun.com. That's my email address. But LinkedIn is really, very straightforward. Yeah, and then
yes.
info@caveofthesun.com. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh my goodness, this has been another episode. And so I'm not going to tell the audience what we're going to talk about next. You are going to share what we're going to talk about next when you appear, when you come back.
Yes. Okay, so you don't want me to tell them now. No.
Oh, no, you don't want to tell them now, or you do want to
Okay,
tell
no.
them now?
No, it's going to be, we're going to be taking all of this a step further, and we're going to dive even deeper into personal health care and self-healing.
Excellent. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so, so much, Dr. Maria Ian. This has been another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. We thank you for your appearance and your sharing of your wisdom and your knowledge.
Well, I want to
It's
thank
always
you.
great to have you.
No, I want to thank you, Anolia, for being a real sister in spirit, because the reason this works so well is because we are in tune. Yes, I want
Yes,
to tremendously
yes.
really appreciate and thank you for that. Yeah.
And here we are on opposite sides of the world. Dr. Maria Ian's in the United States, and here I am in Angola. So if you're wondering about the clothing, it's getting too summer this
Yeah.
direction, and it's going too winter in that direction.
The sweater.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and take care for now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.